Yeah. What in the world? There we go. Perfect. Lovely. So, please tell me OBS is functioning. Is it? Perfect. I love it when things work. So, World of Darkness. Also, thank you all for showing up. But as I was saying, World of Darkness. Well, it's actually more of a blackboard, Ollie, not a whiteboard, but you know what I know what you mean. So, what was I saying? World of Darkness. Gothic horror set right here, right now. Or more accurately, everywhere, pretty much all the fucking time. You can there's settings for the past, some for the future. It's less obvious. Most of it's set within like turn of the millennium, like 1980s to 2000s, though you can pretty easily translate that to the 2020s. It's not hard. So, World of Darkness. You might be thinking, if you didn't catch the previous stream, or one of my many rants about, well, the thing. What is World of Darkness? So, I'm going to spin a quick yarn for you. It'll be kind of mediocre, I apologize. So, you're walking down the street. It's dark out, you just got out of a party, it was kind of mediocre. Oh. Oh, wait, shit. That is not good, Ollie. Fuck. That is definitely not good. Also, quick question. Can y'all hear me? I just have to make sure of those things. Because I hope I didn't just start rambling without even being able to be heard. That would be quite bad. Oh no. That's definitely not good. It says it's transferring over, so... Strange. Oh, okay, no, it's just latency then. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, a little low. My apologies. Let me turn this up a smidgen. There you go. Perfect. So, what was I saying? Setting the scene. You're walking down the street. It's 2 a.m., maybe 3. It's still dark out. The autumn chill rings deep in the wind. You left a party an hour ago. Your car broke down. Should have expected it. You were meaning to take it in a couple weeks ago, but you kept forgetting, kept pushing it off. So now you're here, alone, in the dark. You think you hear something. Do you? You walk by a house. It's old, looks abandoned. But there's still that same old rusted, beat-up truck out front. You see an apartment in the distance, the light flickering in a pattern you can't seem to discern. You hear the sounds of faraway people, people like you maybe, still embracing the joys of urban decay and the desecration of life. Now, this could just be a normal night. And in our world, you'll probably get home, maybe be accosted by someone, but probably not. And you'll go to bed, sleep off whatever hangover you'll probably have in the morning, and go on with it. Now, this is not our world. As I said before, World of Darkness is gothic, and it tries to be at least, most of the time. That house, oh, it's not abandoned. There's a coterie of hungry leeches waiting to feast upon travelers just like yourself. Missing persons line the walls. And ever so faintly, if you have just the right perceptions, you can hear the screams of the damned deep below. That apartment far off with that flickering window, in our world, probably just needs an electrician, or has a faulty bulb. Not too surprising. Thank you, February. Yeah, what was this? Oh, yeah, has a faulty bulb. Of course, in this one, maybe the bulb isn't faulty. Maybe if you translated that pattern, you get a Morse code ritual. It would tell you when you were born, when you're gonna die, how you're gonna die. Maybe they're wrong. Maybe they're right. Now, you might be thinking, wow, this world kind of fucking sucks. Because, you know, there's ghosts and ghouls and vampires and shit. But that's the difference. You're not the person walking down the street. Or maybe you just started out as them. But that's not what you are anymore. You're the vampire. You're the person sending the pattern. You're the person burying the body. Welcome to World of Darkness. So, first and foremost, let's talk about the main settings. Or the big three, at least. First, VTM. Vampire the Masquerade. It's about, as you can probably tell, vampires. Of course, they don't call themselves that. It is kindred. Then, second, WTA. Werewolf the Apocalypse. Of course, werewolves don't call themselves werewolves. They call themselves Garou. And third, and out of all of them, the most strange that I'm not getting into it this time because it would take 2 hours and a lot of cocaine. And probably some LSD. Any psychedelics you can really get your hands on. But that is MTA. Mage the Ascension. Now, mages do call themselves mages. Because they're fucking nerds. Though some call themselves enlightened scientists, some say, oh, well, actually, I'm not a mage, I'm just an etherite. And it's like, no, you're casting fucking magic, you stupid nerd. But yeah. We're not getting into Mage the Ascension today. That's complex, and it's very weird and kind of cyclical because it deals with the nature of all reality and reality as a format of your perception. Don't worry about it. Right now, we're focusing on Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse, dealing with the kindred and the Garou. Now, I'm going to start off with a quick rundown of Vampire the Masquerade, since that was the one I explained last stream. So, way back when, during the times pre-Christ, in however much BCE. So, fun fact about World of Darkness. God is real. Capital G, Christian God. Counterpoint, so is Santa Claus, so God should really know his fucking place. So is the Buddha. And everything else, really. So is fucking Mothman. Hell, depending on where you are, Mothman might be more powerful than the Christian God. So, like, God should know his place. But, way back when, during way far BCE, when God was Jehovah, yes, they do lean into some Jehovah's Witness stuff. It's kind of weird and cyclical. Now, You kooky kids might know the story of Cain and Abel. So, as you may know, Cain kills his brother with a rock. I can't blame him. As a brother myself, I've wanted to kill my siblings many a times with a rock. And in, normal Bible storyline, in typical Bible canon, yes, that is actually where the term canon and then headcanon comes from, the Bible, God punishes Cain by basically meaning, you may never farm again, you will walk this earth eternally, all lands shall decay and become withered under your feet. Now, in this one, he does not punish him like that. He says, hey, want to be a vampire? And Cain is like, what the fuck are you talking? Who are you? Are you God? And then Jehovah, being, well, God, turns him into a fucking vampire. Now, you may be wondering, hey, wait a second. If Cain and Abel were the only two, humans, how did humans come about? Especially if Cain murdered his brother. So, there was a third, and also probably a fourth and seventh, and a bunch of shit. Adam and Eve really got it on, let's just say that way. And this third living brother, or third main one, is Seth. The Sethite. The father of humanity, as it is titled in World of Darkness lore, at least. And we are all technically descendants. We are all Sethites / Cain. That's us. Now, let's get back to Cain. Now, Cain had childbirth. That is the term for when a vampire embraces someone. And his were the second generation. They had their own, which is the third generation. / the antediluvians. Now, those of you with knowledge of the Bible might know that antediluvian means survived the flood. Yes, God did make the flood, don't worry about it. That happened a while ago. Also, as I said, vampires don't call themselves vampires. They call themselves one of two things. Oh, well, they call themselves a lot of things, but the main ones that pretty much everyone accepts are kindred. Being kindred of the night. Or Cainites. And I think you can assume why. All technically descendants of Cain. Now, as vampiric blood goes down the totem pole, starting from good old Daddy Cain, old great-grandpa Cain, master of the night, killer of all, the first murderer, it goes down. And as it goes down and down and down, we reach to where the modern day usually is. The highest generation vampire the modern day will usually do is a 7th generation. Most are around 8 or 9. Now, as the vampiric blood goes down this totem pole, it becomes diluted with human or Cain blood. Think of it this way. This guy, the 7th generation fucking Nosferatu or something, he can juggle dumpsters. This guy, comparatively, can juggle buildings. So the blood gets diluted. To give context, an antediluvian, which is, remember, the 3rd generation of vampires, one of them woke up in 1999. It took 3 nukes, the combined power of multiple incarnations of the Buddha, yes, that Buddha's wrath, and the full combined force of the Illuminati pointing the sun at him. And these guys described the second as horrible demigods. Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, if these people who literally took nukes to the face and were slowed down a smidgen, by the way, these were magic nukes, not normal nukes, because it was run by the secret world government, which are wizards, by the way. Don't worry about it, I'll explain later. So, if these guys describe these guys as horrible demigods, who the fuck was Cain? Hint, he can punch down a mountain. But, fun fact, you, as a modern vampire, probably a neophyte, which is a vampire which is not 50 years old yet, that doesn't fucking matter to you. Hell, you might not even know the story of Cain and Abel. All you know is you were a fucking stoner at some rave, and then some pretty lady came up to you, started nibbling on your neck. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool. And then they fucking bit down. And you woke up the next night, feeling very, very thirsty, and with a new pair of lovely teeth. So, you might be thinking, wait a second, but if these vampires can juggle dumpsters and shit, why didn't they, take over humanity? Fun fact, way back when, during the medieval era, they did. There's a reason vampires were more powerful then. First and foremost, they were higher generation usually, and humans were more afraid. But then a little thing came about. You love them, you hate them. The Inquisition. They hunted vampires like dogs. Which is fair. They kinda deserved it. Now, in the modern nights, vampires follow the titular masquerade. That masquerade has tenets. 1. Don't let people know you're a fucking vampire. And you might think, oh, well, why don't I just go around fucking killing people? Fun fact, humans are pack animals. And while you, human, might be able to murder that cow, are you able to murder the whole fucking herd? Are you able to take them all? No. So vampires acknowledge that, acknowledge the kind, which, fun fact, translates to cattle, by the way. Sorry. They realized, hey, wait a second, if we start killing humans willy-nilly again, they're just gonna fucking burn us all to death, and now they have guns. And, fun fact, you might be some big dick ballin' vampire who has mastered fortitude, the discipline of being able to take a fucking punch. Fun fact, 6 to 12 people with shotguns in a place you don't expect them to be is pretty much the end-all be-all of power scaling in this universe. For most things. Because, fun fact, you might be cool, but you're not 6 to 12 shotguns in a place you didn't expect it strong enough. Now, some other tenets of the masquerade are to, follow the rulings of the Camarilla. Do not believe in the Gnostic gospel of Cain, since Cain legally doesn't exist to the Camarilla. I haven't even explained the Camarilla. So, Camarilla / the Ivory Tower. Vampire government. They are run in baronies / kingdoms. It depends on the size, really. but they are all run by a prince. And that is an agender term. You know, everyone is called a prince. So think of it this way. In the Kingdom of London, there was the Baron. There was the Prince. Can't remember his name. I think his name was, it was like Solomon, I believe. Or you could have, Prince Anna Teresi of the Barony of New York. Or Virginia. Or North fucking Norfolk. It doesn't really matter. Some also call themselves regent, but legally, their title is prince. Now, let's get into the two other main factions of vampires. The Anarchs, which are the most recent faction, and the Sabbat. So, these are separated into two main groups. These people like the masquerade, or even if they don't like it, they accept it. These people hate the masquerade. Think of it this way. Sabbat are vampire fascists. They believe in the jihad of killing your elders so that you may grow stronger. As well as a secondary factor of that humanity is lesser, fundamentally. They were the ones who introduced the term kine, or cattle. Now that we got the vampire fascist extremists out of the way, let's get to the other vampire extremists. So, you know a little about the Camarilla. Now, let's talk about the Anarchs. So, the Anarch Revolt. Now, the exact date changes based on when you wanted it to be, but in official lore, it was in the 14th to 15th century. So, a bunch of younger vampires are like, hey, wait a second, I don't want to listen to you just because you're my fucking great-great-grandpa. You still believe that slavery is cool. Or, you still believe that, you still believe in Jehovah. Who the fuck's that? That was labeled heretical gospel fucking 10 decades ago. Fuck you, Dad. And then they murdered each other about it. So, the main difference is Europe is mostly the Camarilla. Or, as other groups would call it, Camis. Which is very fun to say. While the Americas are mostly the Anarchs. And the Sabbat is kind of in both. Anarchs will also be called, really any insulting name you can think of. Revolutionaries, things like that. And of course, as I said, the Sabbat is kind of anywhere and everywhere. They're usually small splinter groups who don't really have any form of organized leadership, which makes sense since it's the Sabbat. Now, Anarchs use the same governance system as the Camarilla. You know, baronies / kingdoms. They just don't use the term prince. They prefer baronies over kingdoms, and they prefer barons over princes. Fundamentally, it's the same fucking word. Because this is a political divide about not obeying the yoke of the elders. Now, all vampires can participate in a thing called the Embrace. Now, that is turning a kine into a kindred, or turning someone into a vampire. So, pretty lady comes up to you, bites on your neck, or your wrist, or something, or your chest. It really depends. And you get the biggest rush of dopamine and endorphins and the greatest high you've ever fucking had. And then you go cold, as all of the blood is drained out of your body. And in those final moments where your brain shuts off, you feel something cold touch your lips. Something cold yet hot, something sweet yet sour. Vitae. And you reawaken to the new night, to your first death. You have become a kindred. Now, you are now up to the yoke of vampire politics. Sucks to suck elbows up. So, the differing clans have differing opinions upon embracing new childer. The Camarilla, it's a whole thing of bureaucracy. To the point where if you embrace someone illegally, you will be killed and so will your childer. Your heads will get cut off. Now, with the Anarchs, it's considered bad form not to inform your Baron that you are embracing someone. You won't be publicly executed, but there's a non-insignificant chance you will be killed for it. So they also have just slightly lesser bureaucracy. Now, we get to the Sabbat. And the Shovelheads. So, you kooky kids. So, you go to a rally. Maybe it's Antifa, maybe it's anything. Any violent group, really. Any violent political group. And some ugly motherfucker who looks like who looks like he was run over by 17 trucks and then set on fire. Looks like a tire fire if that was a person. By the way, that's a Nosferatu. Motherfucker grabs you, bites you, also probably hits you in the head with a shovel. And then, you wake up buried alive. Your body is cold, and you are damn fucking hungry. And so, you, newly minted K-Knight that you are, dig yourself out of your grave. And that's why they're called Shovelheads. And that's the Sabbat method of embrace. Now, once again, while I've been explaining this, and I've been explaining how, vampires, the vampiric bite, or the kiss, as it's called, is very pleasurable, how I describe they can juggle dumpsters and also cast fucking magic. Not like actual for real magic, but sorcery. I'll explain the difference in a bit. You might be thinking, wait a second, how are humans not just like a slave race to these jackass motherfucking immortals? 'Cause fun fact, the sun exists. And vampires, even the strongest of them, even Cain himself, burn away in the sun. And most vampires have a primordial fear of fire. It causes them to enter a frenzy and to run. So, as well as any other number of weaknesses they may or may not have, like, putting a wooden stake into the heart of a vampire will paralyze them. And like most things, if you cut off their head, they're gonna be dead. Fun fact. Oh, don't you worry, Jill. I'll explain that sort of shit in a moment. It's some of my favorite bits. Because something you all must know and this is something I neglected to mention for a reason. My world of darkness is not equivalent to yours. Because, fundamentally, they are not the same thing. Everything I have said here, you can say, I don't like that. That's stupid. I don't want to do it. And make up your own shit. Hell, look at Chronicles of Darkness, where vampires don't have an organized society. Look at a bunch of shit. Because fundamentally, the main rule of this setting is that it is your world of darkness first. How you and your friends, I hope, if you're playing this with people, prefer to learn about it, prefer to play it. How you and your buddies are gonna have fun. I would suggest leaning into official lore, because there's so much of it that you can take whatever you want. You can take any fucking way. So, when you brought up Blade and hybrids and daywalkers and that idea, I will mention one of my favorite things. So remember how I was talking about how as vampire blood goes down the totem pole, or technically up the totem pole, it gets more and more diluted? So, that keeps happening until we reach 13. That is considered the last true vampire of a generation. When we get to that, we get to the 14th generation. And then finally, the 15th. And those are considered thin bloods. Most 14th generation vampires can't, what's the term? Embrace new childer. Some can, and those are 15th generation vampires. Now, one thing that you'll have to learn. Vampiric strength and weakness dilutes. So 7th generation, guess what? Juggle dumpsters. But if you show fire to them, it's gonna be a hard thing for them to not run away. Now, you, as a 14th generation vampire or something, maybe you can just, like, lift a couch above your head, if you're lucky. You know, you're a human plus, not a vampire anymore. According to most vampires, you would be considered a ghoul plus, and I'll talk about ghouls in a moment. Or a ghoul plus plus. You know, superhuman, but not to the equivalence of a vampire. But those weaknesses go down. And fun fact, most vampires are sterile, because they're dead. But 15th generation vampires aren't dead. They're still living. At least a little bit. And so, 15th generation vampires can have kids. It's rare as fuck, it is a very tumultuous pregnancy. But those children are officially known as Dhampir. And they are human plus. You know, think of it this way. You know how you struggle to lift up the bag of groceries? They do not struggle to lift up the bag of groceries. They are basically, if the average human is 0.5 and then the top of humanity is 1, they are closer to like 9.9 all the time. And then if they work at it, they can become 1.7 or something. Superhuman, but not very much. But, hey, any form of superpowers I'd take. Of course, then you have to deal with the fact that your dad or your mom is a literal fucking vampire. And also probably racist. Because they're vampires, they're assholes. But there is a second form. And that is the ghoul. Now, ghouls are anything or anyone who has been fed vitae. Or vampire blood. Now, vitae is the most addictive substance known to man. It is hyper-addictive, psychedelic, and there's pretty much no way to get out of it. It's very hard to, at the very least. And it also enforces love between captor and victim. Or, sorry, vampire and ghoul. Because, of course, you would support them. They've helped you so much. And come on, just because they happen to have some bad traits, you know, there are a lot worse vampires out there. You should really help them, fight with them, kill for them. But that's a ghoul. Now, ghouls are usually people. Think less Stockholm syndrome and more drugged compliance, because it is a psychic connection of enforced adoration and love. Now, ghouls are usually human, meaning ghouls can have kids. Now, if a vampire goes down the line and keeps ghouling them, after 3 or 4 generations, you start getting revenants. Now, revenants are funny, because they do something that's very, very funny. They are a ghoul, and get all the abilities of a ghoul naturally. They produce vitae, meaning that guy walking down the street in the middle of the day could juggle dumpsters, or could psychic mind wipe you, or teleport into the fucking shadows, or move at light speed. There's a bunch of vampire superpowers, is what I'm saying, and they can transfer those to their ghouls. Of course, if a vampire can juggle a dumpster, a ghoul can juggle, I don't know, tungsten weights. You know, it's not exactly equivalent. But as I was saying, revenants produce vitae naturally. Meaning they get those abilities at a lesser extent of a vampire, but they are not bloodbound. And bloodbinding is how a vampire controls a ghoul. Okay? That is the psychic love connection, as it were. There's also secondary aspects, you know, I've seen in some aspects of lore, the concept of daywalkers as, you know, children of vampires and ghouls because of that connection. Things like that. It really depends on what you want to do for your world of darkness. Now, before I move on, any questions? Also, let me just make sure the music is actually functioning. Turns out I didn't have the music on. I'm a little bit of an idiot. Don't worry. I do not know why I'm yawning today. Alrighty, I'm not seeing any questions, so... As I have described about VTM, there are the 13 clans. That's a bunch of shit that doesn't really matter for this, like, wide description of World of Darkness. I will answer that question quickly. So, Vitae is in demand, yes. Revenants usually do have to keep quiet about it, and they do because, fun fact, if a vampire has a... Sorry, I just saw your question. So, fun fact, if a vampire has been able to ghoul this family line, to like 4 or 5 or 7 or 8 generations of people, that means that vampire is very close to them. Meaning those revenants will serve out of the normal way, not the psychic connection way, out of the your parents have done this, your grandparents have done this, your great-grandparents have done this. You will serve, and you will serve well. So yes, there's also a factor that because revenants produce vitae, which is vampire blood, they are very useful because you could feed other ghouls off of that. You could feed a vampire off of that. Because, fun fact, as vampires get older, and this is not a generation thing, this is, well, it's partially a generation thing, but it's mostly a age thing. Oh, hey Edmund, we are nerding out about World of Darkness lore, specifically Vampire the Masquerade. Basically, to give you the quick rundown, Cain murders his brother, God curses him to be a vampire, and then Cain has kids. So, vampires, as they get older, human blood stops being so useful for them. Of course, this get older is 500 years to about 1,000. So, most vampires have entered a torpor by now, and there you can usually still feed off of human blood. But if they've been active for those 500 to 1,000 years, they need to start drinking higher proof, for lack of a bit. Oh, Aaron, why would you want to protect your child from your master? They love you. They're here to help you. Don't worry about it. Now, as I was saying, so, if that vampire has been active for 500 to 1,000 years, they start needing to drink higher proof, for lack of a better term. Human or animal blood doesn't do it for them anymore. So, first, they might start drinking from other vampires. Usually lower generation, since that functions. You know, there's a whole thing where vampires can mass embrace people and, like, make a bunch of low generation vampires. Or, well, low generation. Okay, high generation, weak vampire. Low generation, strong vampire. High gen vampires to feed on them later. Like, seeding crop, if you will. Now, a way to subvert that... Oh, hey, Curleen. To subvert that is to feed off of a revenant, if you know and if you've been intelligent enough to keep a good stock of them available. Since, well, this servant family has been useful for the past 1,000 years, might as well keep them around, and hey, their children produce vampire blood. Means I don't have to go and deal with all the repercussions of, oh, you killed my sire, oh, you killed my child. Ugh, politics, am I right? So, that's another usage for revenants as they were. But most vampires, when they get to the higher proof state of things, start eating other vampires. Now, we're gonna get into an interesting topic. Diablerie. Now, it's a portmanteau of two words, diabolos and alari, or devil eating. So, when a vampire eats another vampire, they can go through the process of diablerie. And that's taking the last sip out of the juice box. That's killing them, leading to Vampire 2's final death. The final death is when a vampire actually dies. Now, Vampire 1 gets some pretty sick bonuses from eating their buddy. They get all the powers and the disciplines, which is, disciplines are vampire magic. You know, super speed, super strength, enhanced charisma, enhanced, like, being able to mind control shit, shadow magic, blood magic, being able to turn to a dog. It's a whole thing. Now, most vampires only have like 2 to 4 disciplines. It takes a while to learn. But if you diablerize, you immediately get those disciplines. And if, say, you are a 13th generation thin blood, and you eat a 10th generation, you will stop being 13th. You might go up to 12th or 11. Or if they were old, if their blood had had a long time to ferment, for lack of a better term, you could go right up to 10th generation. Oh, don't trust other vampires. Don't trust anyone. Fuck you, got mine is the ruling of this world. Now, officially, the Camarilla and the Anarch Free States both ban diablerie. It is illegal. You will be hunted down if you diablerize another vampire in a blood hunt. Basically, say you're Vampire 1 in the previous scenario and you ate somebody, and people can tell. Because there are ways to tell. You know, there's the aura of a diablerist on you. So you might be hunted down. And there is one legal way to diablerize someone. If it's a blood hunt. That makes it legal. That means it's allowed. That means you're gonna get hunted down and devoured. Aaron, I thank you. Because that is exactly what it is. It is a lonely existence for the vampire. You may be immortal, but you are alone. Now, of course, that may be different for you and your buds, your coterie. A coterie is a group of vampires, because that's you and your friends, and while the rest of the world goes by fuck you got mine, you and your buddies might be different. You and your buddies might help each other. And remember that analogy of 6 to 12 shotguns? It doesn't matter what you're going against. Because you and your buddies can be the 6 to 12 shotguns. In the place they didn't expect. Nothing is safe. Kill your elders. Embrace it. Now, by the way, I'm just saying this right now. Any questions you have, please send them in. I love answering them about this. So, I'm just going to quickly run down the clans very simply. First, the clan Banu Hakim. They are like vampire judges. Think, you know, vampire cops. Which is why most people don't like them. Because they're really fucking self-righteous about it. And all vampires have a bane. and it comes from their clan. And the bane is something that affects them. So, for Banu Hakim, that bane is they fucking love eating other vampires. They are also moral absolutists. And whenever a vampire does something that they, or well, anyone really, does something they view as like illegal or against their system of justice, they feel the urge to eat them. Now, as a modern day vampire, that might be biting on an innocent person. And if you eat one, and if you take a bite out of one of your buddies, it's gonna be real hard to pull you off if you're a Banu Hakim. Fun fact, their founder, their antediluvian, was Hakim. Now, according to official Banu Hakim lore, Hakim killed, as a normal man, killed 2 second-generation vampires. That's a fucking lie, because remember, a 3rd-generation vampire took 3 nukes to the face and kept on trucking. So, that's a plain old lie. Just letting you kids know that. Now, on to the next clan. La Sombra. Shadowmancers. Ghosts. Their bane is distorted reflection. You know how in a lot of media vampires can't be seen in mirrors and shit? Or in cameras? That's the La Sombra. Perhaps in a photo it'll be static, that artifacts around them. Sometimes it's considered a masquerade breach. Most of the time, it just looks like a glitch in a system. But there's no guarantee it'll stop from telling who you are, if you're unlucky. Next, Malkavians. So, Malkavians' bane is that they are connected to the Madness Network. Which is every degenerative psychological disease in one, except it's also prophetic. Most of the time, it's prophetic. And a secondary issue, since Malkavians mostly embrace from those who are already, non-neurotypical in a lot of very extreme ways, the Madness Network only gets more and more and more extreme. Now, Malkavians aren't good or bad people. They're just people. They are just mentally ill. That is it. Now, Nosferatu. Nosferatu, their bane, ugly. They're just really fucking butt ugly. Like, ugh, gross. Like, it is a masquerade breach for them to be seen in public type ugly. Pale skin. And I'm not talking, oh, corpse pale. I'm talking, they look like someone fucking painted them with bleach. Weird pustulous boils. They look like Nosferatu from the movie Nosferatu. Sucks to be them. Thankfully, they have the abilities of obfuscate, which allows them to go invisible. You are never alone. Next, the Toreador. Their bane is vanity. They gotta be in places that fit their aesthetic. They're Pinterest girlies and boys. Now, we head to one of my favorites. The Tremere. Shitty vampire wizards. They are the youngest of the clans, because Tremere, the guy, ate Vampire Buddha. Oh, hey there, Zora. How's it going? And the Tremere's clan bane is that they can't bloodbind anyone. They cannot create ghouls. They cannot create thralls. There is no method for them. After the destruction of the Tremere Pyramid. Next is the Ventru. Ventru are the typical, like, the typical, like, high-class aristocratic vampire. Their bane is high blood, as it's called sometimes. Oh, be safe, Aaron. Rest well, or bounce, or have a good day. So, a Ventru can only drink from a certain type of person. Maybe it's people with green eyes. Maybe it's people of noble birth. Maybe it's people who can do arithmetic in their head really well. It just has to be rare. Maybe it's people with green eyes of noble birth who can do arithmetic really well. A really good way I've seen it done is in LA by Night, which is a live play game. Oh, to answer your question, Zora, this is me talking about World of Darkness, specifically Vampire the Masquerade. World of Darkness is a TTRPG game series, with Vampire the Masquerade being one of the more popular game lines. Basically, to give you a quick rundown, Cain murdered his brother, now there are vampires. You might be one, or you might be a ghoul. There's plenty of things. It kind of sucks. All vampires have a bane. Vampires burn in the sun, they hate fire, and, you know, they can die pretty quickly. Sucks to suck elbozos. Now, Bruja. The Poets clan. Also, pretty much the founders of the Anarch Revolt. Their bane is that they're rebels. Without a cause. They rebel to rebel. They enjoy it. They will go against the dominant society just because they can. And, within that, they have a very violent temper. They all got anger issues. Anger issues so bad, it spreads to you, and to me, and everybody else around. So, you know, you'll find Bruja in every manner of political extremist organization. From neo-Nazis to Antifa. Literally all of them. They are rebels sometimes with a cause, but usually without a cause. Next are one of my favorites, the Ministry. Or the Setites, specifically 1T. Now, the Ministry is also known as the Serpentis cult. So, you know the Egyptian god Set? He was a vampire. And he founded his own clan, called the Cult of Set. They have recently rebranded into the Ministry. They're vampire priests, to give lack of a better term. And their bane is corruption. They feel a need to corrupt things. It's in their blood. They like doing it. Or, more accurately, that is their compulsion. Because compulsion is different than bane. Compulsion is a psychiatric thing that they feel compelled to do. Their bane is that they are very light sensitive. You know how all vampires react in fear to the sun? They react in fear to normal light too. Like, or not normal light, but like, you know, a really bright LED. Kinda sucks for them. But they also get magic powers over snakes, so like, pretty cool. Now, the Hecata. The Necromancers. Now, they don't technically have one official compulsion and one official bane. But, the main ones are... Sorry. Their main ones are the Painful Kiss, or Decay. Now, earlier I was talking about how a vampire bite is one of the most pleasurable experiences you can have. And it is. Not for these guys. So you know how getting bitten and getting teeth sank deep into your neck would be pretty painful? This multiplies it. It fucking sucks. Now, the other one is Decay. They leak pure entropy, pure decay and desecration. So, kind of sucks for them. And their compulsion is morbidity. They like morbid stuff, which is fair. Can't blame them. It's pretty cool. They also have necromancy, by the way, and shadow magic. Don't worry about it, though. Now, we have the Ravnos. Now, dear old Ravnos. So, if y'all were here earlier, I was talking about how an antediluvian woke up in 1999, and it took 3 incarnations of the Buddha's wrath, multiple nukes, and the full force of the sun being directed at him to put him down. Now, also an antediluvian, by the way, if you didn't hear me earlier, that is the 3rd generation of vampires. So that is 3 generations away from Cain. If Cain is 1, the 2nd generation is 2, antediluvians are number 3. Just making sure everybody knows that. So, the Ravnos' clan bane is doomed. Because their father, Ravnos himself, was burned away in the sun. They can't stay in one place. They can't stay still. They have to move. And this isn't sleep on a different side of the room. This is sleep at the other end of the city. This is at least a kilometer away type deal. Of course, it resets over a week, which is nice for them a little. But if they don't, they burn up from the inside as sunlight devours them whole. It kinda sucks to be a Ravnos, is what I'm saying. Now, before I move on from vampires... Oh, I almost forgot about one of my favorites. How could I forget? How could I forget? I am a silly little guy sometimes, I'll admit it. So, I forgot about one of my favorite clans. The Gangrel. Now, you know those takes on vampires which are very animal-esque, you know, monstrous, brutal? That's the Gangrel. Their bane is that when they enter a frenzy, they might become more animal-like for a little while. Perhaps their ears will sharpen and grow to be like bat ears. Their eyes might turn into that of a wolf's. Their hands might turn into claws. Now that, thankfully, only lasts a day or 2 for them at max. They also have an issue where they want to solve things the animal way. Violence, force, aggression. I love them, because they're little freaks. Fun fact about the Gangrel, you will be looked down on if you have the choice of becoming a vampire. If you fight against the Kiss, you're more likely to be turned by gangrels, because, fun fact, they think that's kind of cool. They also believe their founder, Enoya, the first gangrel, and also daughter of Lilith, yes, that Lilith, was also the mother of werewolves. They're technically wrong. And now, so, I just mentioned werewolves, and I've mentioned them a couple times now. So, time to get into Werewolf the Apocalypse. Now, you might be wondering, hey, why is it called Werewolf the Apocalypse? So, way back when, pre-Big Bang, way back when, there were the triadic spirits. The Triad. The Weaver, or actually let me give these proper symbols. The Weaver. The Wild. And the Worm. These three are a cycle. The Wild creates energy. The Weaver binds that energy, weaves it into shape. The Worm destroys so that it can be recreated by the Wild. A perfect cycle, the Triad. These also fundamentally represent different things. Let me move that up a bit to get that out of the way. So, yes, you are weaving her. Now, the Weaver represents order. The Wild, chaos. And the Worm, entropy. Fundamental forces of reality. Now, order is neutral to chaos. They are opposites. They have to exist. But order does not like entropy. It hates it. So, the Weaver bound the Worm. And so for a long, long, long time, the Worm was stuck. And the Weaver could create freely. Could keep creating as it wished. Now, one little issue. The Worm went insane. Truly crazy. It broke past. It stopped being the Worm. It became Worm Defiler. Where it enjoyed destruction. It kept destroying. Not in an ordered sense. Not to help creation. But only to destroy. Because, fun fact, when you struggle against a cage for long enough, that cage will break down, and you will have grown strong for your struggles. But when you're alone for long enough, you go insane. And that's what happened to the Worm. Now, let's get to a little blue dot called Earth. You know, lovely place. Currently, this was at the time of Pangea, so it was all one really big continent. I'm not the best artist in quick succession, I will confess. So, Earth. Mother Earth. Gaia. As well as, well, it depends on whose archetype you take. I personally prefer the my favorite version, Gaia's wife, Luna. Now, Gaia, seeing the issue of the worm defiler, had to create protectors for herself. And those were the changing breeds. Now, the changing breeds are somewhere in between the physical and the spiritual. They're in both, for lack of a better term, but they're also in neither. They're stuck in the middle. And the main one we will be talking about are the werewolves. Or the Garou. Now, the Garou were designed as protectors of Gaia, but they use a function of rage. Now, you might know something if you have dealt with anger issues. Rage is a useful tool, but it is not the best for protection. It's a hammer when you sometimes need a scalpel. But there's a little issue. The Garou used to not be the only type of changing breed around. They aren't that. They are alone, pretty much. Or it's very rare. Because, fun fact, the War of Rage happened. Pre-human history. The changing breeds all tried to kill each other because of differing ideals of how to protect Gaia. Because, fun fact about the Garou, they were participating in something called the Terror. And the Terror were mass human genocides. Now, that has caused a fun little thing to happen in human beings and non-supernatural creatures when they see a werewolf turn. They suffer something called the delirium. And the delirium is a primal reaction. Fight, flight, freeze. Damn it. Or fall. Now, for most, it's fight or flight. It's the instinct telling you to go punch that 7-foot-tall werewolf right in the fucking nose. Or more accurately, probably 9 to 10 feet tall. Think of it this way. It's a 900-pound killing machine. Because, fun fact, you know how I was talking about 6 to 12 shotguns? Werewolves are much more on the 12 to 15 shotgun side of things, because they are very rare, and they are Gaia's warriors. So, say you find a werewolf, and you're fighting one, and you happen to get a lucky shot and cut off one of their hands. I know, I'm quite the artist. So, you cut that thing off. 5 seconds, they got a new one. They're brutal regenerators. They can survive so much more. They can kill and kill and kill. One werewolf versus a tank? Safe bet on the werewolf. 70% of the time, they'll win. That's the brutality we're talking about. But they are also very rare. And by very rare, I mean 1 in a million chance of being born. Of course, that chance spikes up to a legendary 1 in 100,000 chance of being born if one of their parents is a werewolf. So, small issue. After they killed all the other changing breeds, some issues started happening. Because, You know that thing of the terror? Yeah, that caused humans to not trust them at all. And humans are a very industrial people, aligned with all three of the triad, but most specifically, the Weaver and the Worm. So time passed, and a little thing called capitalism started coming about. Now, capitalism is directly connected to the Worm. Because who could have guessed a system of economy built around creating wealth for only the top percent of people, while killing and hurting everyone else, would be aligned with a force of fundamental destruction. By the way, all of World of Darkness is extremely political. Now, little issue, some groups came about, like, say, Pentex, which, in official lore, is kind of like the big corporations, the head of all the big corporations. I personally dislike that, because Pentex is actively run by Fomori, which are worm-possessed people. Now, in my take of it, Pentex is more of a consulting firm. You know, when a corporation burns down half the Amazon rainforest, they call Pentex to help get them out of Dodge. It's like that for them. Now, because werewolves, all 10,000 that are left, out of the packs and packs that used to roam the earth, 10,000 is probably a large estimate, probably closer to 7,000. They're trying to fight against the concept of capitalism. So they have a hard run of it, eh? Now, of course, this is benefited by the fact that, you know, as I said, fucking 9 foot tall, 900 kilograms of pure muscle and hate. Because think of it this way, as I said before with the hand cut off analogy, let's say I shoot a werewolf in the face with a gun. They'd probably walk it off and rip me in half. It's pretty brutal. Werewolves can also bond with spirits to, you know, get gifts and boons from them, and gnosis. Yes, like the concept of Gnosticism being one with all reality. Because the triadic spirits aren't really gods, they're more so... It's one really big pyramid with a lot of bricks. And it's mostly... Think of it this way. It's less a build-up all into one, but more so, this is one thing. This pyramid is the Weaver. And all the spirits that build up into it. It's the spirit of a pebble becoming a spirit of a rock. The spirit, which is also contained within the spirit of a stone, which is contained within the spirit of a mountain, which is contained within the spirit of a mountain range, which is contained within the spirit of this entire area, which is contained within the spirit of this continent, which is contained within the spirit of this hemisphere, which is contained within the spirit of Gaia. And it goes up like that. It also means that you, local werewolf, say you pissed off the spirit of a specific duck. If you do that enough to enough ducks, you'll get capital D duck on your ass. And duck is all of the ducks ever. Now, you might think, you know what, I can take duck with a capital D. I'll kick his teeth in. And maybe you do, but then you have bird. The concept of all birds. Every single one. The greater spirit bird on your ass. And if you say, okay, fuck it, I kill that one too. Then you have animal. Which, fun fact about animal, it's described as a giant chimeric entity, which is haunting yet beautiful to look at. And say you fuck with that one enough. Then you have Gaia on your ass. But to be fair, that doesn't really matter anymore because, well, you're already dead. Because, fun fact, capital D Duck can already crush you like a bug. But yeah, fun fact also. You know how werewolves have been trying to save Gaia? Yeah, they failed. Gaia's dead. She died a long time ago. You failed. You're protecting her corpse and nothing more. Any questions? Oh, by the way, if any of you want to know the backing track that has been playing in this has been Hospitals 2 by Cryptic Scenery. Go check them out on, like, Free Music Archive. It's, like, really kind of creepy horror ambient tracks. I like them a lot. Alrighty, since there are no more questions, I suppose I will pose a few to y'all. To the, well, 2 or 3 of you that are here now. So, first and foremost, how are y'all doing? Fair. Let's see here. Checking that and that. Well, looking at that, since there does not seem to be much in the way of people questioning. Oh, good, good, good. I will also say, I'm probably going to post polls and such on most likely my YouTube community tab to give people context here for both anyone who, if they decide to watch this absurdly long VOD, or not absurdly, it's only an hour or so, but this long ramble of me talking about things to give people context. So, I've had a Patreon for a little bit. I'm wondering what people would actively want to see on there for possible paid content. Since I've mostly just been hanging around using it to post, well, as some of you may know, shit posts. Because I have a couple ideas, probably some, behind the scenes processes, early images of the art, or scripts that I'm working on, things like that. These are just, questions. Probably also ad-free content. Now that I'm thinking about it, that would probably be smart. Also, this is just a reminder to all of you. Go get some water, get some food. Make sure to take care of yourselves. Don't sit for long periods of time. Get up and stretch, things like that. And also, Goodbye. Be safe, nerds. Love you. Now, how do I... Be safe. Don't die. Be cool. Bye.